Welcome to Ask the Good Doctor on Sirius XM Urban View, Channel 126, where talk empowers and becomes action. I'm Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire, back with you to continue the conversation about the three pandemics that we are faced with currently, as we discussed with Dr. Shea Butler in the last segment, the pandemic of racism. Now we are going to discuss the pandemic of COVID and the concerns that parents and children everywhere, the angst of returning back to school in the midst of a pandemic. And joining us to have this conversation is David Banks, the president and CEO of the Eagle Academy Foundation and the founding principal of the Eagle Academy for Young Men. David's approach to the education of young men of color emphasizes a partnership between schools and communities based on the guiding principles of academic excellence, leadership, and character development. He's one of the grand uncles in my village, and we welcome you. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm great, Dr. LaJoyce. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's my pleasure. I could think of no one else to call. You're the president of the Eagle Academy with schools in all of the 5 boroughs in New York City and in the city of Newark, New Jersey. And so who best to have this conversation? So thank you.
All right. I appreciate you.
So tell us about the children returning to school, your boys, you're all boys.
Yeah. This is a tough time, right? So first of all, we were moving right along, another good school year for all of our young people. And all of a sudden this pandemic hit and overnight, we had to stop the process that we had been engaged in, and everybody had to stay home. And the school system, as quickly as they could, shifted to an online virtual learning platform. What's the good news? The good news for us is that we didn't lose any of our young people. Like, nobody passed away. We didn't lose any of our teachers, thank God. We did have students and teachers who lost other family members. And so there's certainly a level of trauma around that. And that's compounded by dozens and dozens of our children who their family members lost their jobs. And so, being in that tough position of being able to feed your children is another traumatic experience. And that pain and suffering continues to be felt. So that has not been easy. We did everything we possibly could to keep the Eagle Village connected. There's some very special things that we do, LaJoyce, around village and community and keeping ourselves connected with our young people.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we do daily town hall meetings when we're in school, right? And they're cultural, and they're about how we build connections. So before our young men ever step foot in class, they'll spend 20 to 30 minutes in the morning after they have breakfast in a cultural town hall gathering, where we literally have a plant in the middle of the lunchroom, and we pour libation every morning for our ancestors. Young men will get up and talk about pain and trauma that they may be experiencing in their life. And my grandma's sick, and she's the one that's been raising me, and just ask that all y'all keep her in your prayers. And it's just anything that's on their heart and mind. It's a release.
Beautiful.
I have seen young men in tears, just releasing emotional baggage.
Yes.
You won't find that in a traditional school.
No.
But at a place like Eagle, it's very special. That's the kind of thing that we do.
And so I can gather that this is the environment that you wanted to foster when you created these schools.
Absolutely. And together with the 100 Black men, who I've been a long-standing member of in New York City, that was the vision, that we create a place where young men can take the armor off when they show up at the schoolhouse door. And they can just be boys growing up into being healthy, responsible young men. And that's the process that we put in place from the time that they're in the 6th grade all the way through the 12th grade. That's the model that we have. And so we had to shift during when this pandemic hit, and say, how do we continue to foster that spirit of brotherhood and
Mm.
family and connection, in spite of the fact that we're not with each other physically? And so, we did that. We did that with our teachers. We did that with our principals, and we did that with our parents and families, and specifically with our young men on a weekly basis, where all of our young men were gathering, and just continue to share what's on their hearts, share what's on their minds. Um, Eagle is a very special place in that regard, and that is what has continued to sustain us throughout this pandemic.
And so, are you returning back to the classroom?
Yeah, so we are going to be returning in a blended scheduling form.
Talk to us
So
about your safety plan. Yeah.
yeah, so Eagle, first of all, I think it's important to know, because a lot of times people hear about Eagle, they don't realize that we are in fact a network of traditional public schools. We're not
Oh,
private, we're not even charter. We're
mm,
regular public schools. So our students are all part of the New York City and the Newark public school system. And
okay.
so we work within those confines. And the way that that is rolling out is to say that our young people are coming back to school, but they're not going to come back full time. You can't, because you can't send all the students back at one time and practice social distance.
Okay.
So
Okay.
until we have a vaccine that's clearly promulgated and safe, um, we will not have all of the students back at one time. So what does that mean? That means there'll be a group of students who can come to school on Monday and Wednesday.
Okay.
Maybe a different group of students who come to school on Tuesday and Thursday. And that will allow us to have proper social distancing in our schools. On the days that you're not in the building, you're still going to continue with the virtual learning platform that had been established from before. Right?
Ah,
The challenge with the virtual learning from before was that the unions put in place a system where many teachers did not have to do direct teaching. They could just post assignments, and students had to go read the assignments, do the work, and do the best that they could. That's
no,
that's not real teaching,
that's
right?
broken.
That's broken, and that has caused a lot of our children to fall behind.
Absolutely.
And
Okay,
so,
can we pause right here?
yes,
And not only that, but you're leaving too much of the responsibility, you're placing too much of the responsibility on a child. I teach on the collegiate level, and I wouldn't dare try that with my students.
right, right,
I wouldn't dare leave it to my students to go online and get the so and so, so and so. No, they still have to be taught.
that's right, absolutely, and that was a challenge. Um, it's certainly a challenge for us to some degree as well, because our teachers are part of the regular teachers union in New York. And when they got the signal that they didn't have to do direct teaching, many of our teachers did direct teaching, and God bless them. But quite a few did not. And all across the system, you had folks who just posted assignments, and I think that that did not work, and it was to the detriment of all of our children. What we're waiting to get the definitive answer on now through the
Mm,
mayor and the chancellor is, what is the protocol going to be going forward?
yeah,
Um, because you cannot have a whole year where teachers don't actually have to teach and they
no.
can post assignments. If you do that, the kids are going to be so far behind, you will never be able to catch them up if that is in fact the case.
Well, David, what I know about your school is that you have excellent teachers who are committed to the cause of educating young Black boys.
Yes.
Paramount, commendable. I cannot imagine that your teachers would be satisfied with even doing that, even if they don't change the mandate. I can see, especially your group of teachers, on their own instructing these children.
Our teachers are highly committed teachers, and they're not an Eagle just because it's a job. They're an Eagle because it's a calling, and
Yeah,
they recognize what our young men need.
yeah,
And so I guess what I was offering up really is more the larger system, um,
yes,
because even though my responsibility is for the young men of Eagle, I care about all of these young people
right.
throughout the entire system, and I want to see what works best for them. Right now, what's interesting, Joyce, is that if you ask the teachers in the union why they push for that, they will tell you the response was that not that teachers were lazy or didn't care, but that the teachers themselves, their hands were full. So imagine if you're a teacher and you've got three kids of your own at home. You've
Yes.
got one who's a 2 year old and another one in the third grade and one in the fifth grade, and they're all running around the house, and you're supposed to be teaching your students online. And ordinarily, those young people would be in school
Right.
themselves. But the
Right.
teacher said, "Well, I can't. I don't have anybody to watch my own kids, and I'm trying to teach the kids, and my kids are running and jumping in my lap, and they're creating havoc around the house. How can I do that?" So that's been part of the challenge. But the system is going to have to figure that out, and those
Huh.
educators have to figure that out because they're
Indeed.
still getting paid a full salary
That's right.
to teach, right? And so people make the adjustments that they need to make when they have to, and
Right.
that's what I'm saying. You have to make those adjustments and figure it out.
That's right. So now the children are coming to school. They're staggered Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. What does it look like when they come to school? What are you doing for safety upon entry?
Yeah, so all of the students have to be tested upon entry. Number one, so
Oh,
that's
they're getting tested every time they come?
every time they come to school. They're going to
Oh
be
my.
there's going to be testing. Yep,
Wow.
they're going to be cleaning the schools on a regular basis.
Okay.
Um, there's going to be they're going to keep the students maintained within specific classrooms once they're in the building. So they're going to reduce the amount of movement throughout,
Yes.
right? So you're going to be with a cohort of students, 10 to 11 students in a class. And instead of you moving from one period to the next, instead of you going from math to English class, the teachers will move to you. So you can
Brilliant.
see the amount of movement that's happening throughout the building. They're going to have lunch served and breakfast. All their meals will be served in the classroom.
Okay.
Um, so again, you want to reduce the amount of movement that you have across the building. They will be able to pick up and move when they got to go to the restroom. They got to go wash their hands, those kinds of things. So they're going to be encouraging, regular sanitation in terms of cleaning their sanitary conditions and washing their hands on a regular basis. They're going to get multiple face masks to wear.
Oh, wait, you're providing face masks.
Yeah, and they're being provided through the city. Yep, yep. So
Really?
oh yeah, the city will be providing, on a regular basis. Kids will have at least 2 face masks that they'll get per day. So they got more than enough face masks.
Now,
Uh,
can they wear their own face masks?
that's a good question. That I hadn't even thought about that. I need to double back on that. I
Because
would.
I'm going to tell you why. A friend of mine works at a hospital system. They said that they have persons swap out their whatever mask they have on upon entry in their building. Their temperature is taken and they get a fresh face mask. And they say for sanitary purposes that they want to ensure that the face mask is sanitized.
Mm,
So, and I can understand that in a sterile environment of the
right.
hospital confines, but I'm just curious as to school. I'm glad to know now, are these the typical face masks, the blue surgical face masks from
Yes.
hospital?
That's right.
Okay. Okay. And what about face shields? If anyone wants to wear face shields.
I've not heard that face shields would be a problem to wear. Um, I don't expect that there'll be many of those, except for the young people that actually have them. They won't be provided by the school per se. But if a young person has been used to wearing a face shield, and that's what they would prefer, I don't imagine that would be a problem unless we hear something differently from the mayor's office that those are not allowed. I hadn't heard anything. Nobody has even brought up that issue around a face shield.
Okay. So now citywide, students will be tested every time they come to the building, not just their temperature, but a test.
Well, no, when I said that, I actually meant the temperature being taken. So,
Oh,
they-
okay.
yeah, no.
Okay.
So, no, they're not getting they're not getting the test every single day. I don't
Okay.
think the city is in a position to do that for, you know, 1.1 million kids every
Oh,
single day.
yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like that's a lot when a lot of people can't even get the test. That would be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Okay. And your teachers who are rotating. And you know what's interesting? My daughter was supposed to attend the University of the Arts in Philly, and they had a brilliant plan similar to yours. And the containing 10 students together, teachers would rotate to them, and it's excellent for contact tracing purposes.
Mm,
Excellent for being able to contain those groups of 10, because if one person turns up positive, you know that you have 10 students to sequester and to have them stay home versus the 250 that
that's
are in the building. It's a brilliant plan. So then when the Department of Health in Philadelphia was looking at the teachers rotating to them, they called off the school when they said, well, the teachers who rotate in would have to take a shower and change clothes,
hmm
and the dancers, she's a dance major, the dancers cannot touch the floor and can't get on the floor.
mm,
And then that's when the school was like, oh boy, we're
mm.
done here. We can't. So we're building a dance studio in our house.
Wow.
So
Go ahead.
they have to have 8 feet of dance space and a
Right.
Macintosh computer. And so when you look at that, because like you say, those, and they had their whole sequester was going to be just freshmen for 4 weeks. And then
Mhm.
the other students would come and they'll be finished at Thanksgiving. I thought that was really brilliant. I felt comfortable sending my child into that situation. But when they doubled back and said no, I sat back on that and was like, oh,
Right.
we are in trouble.
Yeah. 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 And I think I'm not really wholly confident in the way that this is being rolled out. The mayor asked me to serve on a return to school commission.
Ah,
That they picked 40 leaders from around New York City,
okay.
and it included the president of NYU. It included the head of the Children's Aid Society, my sweetheart Sheena Wright, United Way of New York. She was
Yeah.
on the committee, and many others. And we were in weekly meetings with the mayor's office and the chancellor's office.
Okay.
Um, but they didn't ask enough of the right kinds of questions. They didn't engage school leaders enough in the process. We should have been talking about other things like how do you expand on the footprint of schools, which would allow
Yes.
more students back. How do you utilize the local public library down the block? And say we're going
That's
to use that
closed.
space. Right, that's closed. Right. How do you utilize some of our faith-based institutions who have space?
That's right.
The local YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, and all of those programs that service children after school that have these huge facilities that are not being used at all during the day. Um, they're just now getting around to even having those conversations. We should have been talking about that 4 months ago. So,
Absolutely. On day
so
one.
on day one, so we would have been ready now with a real plan. Because the challenge is this: first of all, there's no easy answer for this. First, right?
No.
Like if you tell all the kids to stay home until we have a vaccine, then it really does negatively impact the economy. Parents that say, "I've got to go to work. If I don't go to work, then how that impacts my family." It's one thing if you have a child who's in the 11th grade and they can stay home.
Yeah.
Um, you can't do that if you've got a first grader,
You got that right.
right? And so the idea that everybody should just stay home until this thing is over is not the most feasible way to do it either. And so there's no easy win to this.
No.
But what you wanted was to make sure you've got all the right people at the table, really working to try to come up with the best answers possible. And that's where I felt they fell short, because I don't think they were engaging enough of the people early on enough so that we can get the best plans laid out. It was very limiting, including who they even had at the table, and I
Oh,
didn't understand that.
oh, well, listen, I'm glad that you were there. I'm glad that Sheena was there. And I know that eventually you all are going to stick it to them and make sure that they get around to something that's a viable option to help get our children educated and in larger numbers in mass, instead of people sitting around and wondering what will they do with their children instead of going to work. So
Yes,
thank you, David, and your vision for the Eagle Academy is soaring. Your children are soaring. And we just want to encourage all of you sending your children back to school. Keep their immune systems up. Don't
yes,
feed them cheese doodles and Coca-Colas for breakfast.
Come on.
And we need to avoid those kinds of drinks, even Gatorades. We need to drink coconut water in its place for electrolytes. We need to take vitamin C. You need to do all of the things that are that you know to do to help sustain the immune system. You need to drink your water. You need to go to bed at night. You need to get sunshine and exercise. Do this for your children. This is what's going to keep your immune system up. And just like they have those little commercials with the little animated person washing their hands, singing happy birthday, we can do the same thing. We'll show the animated person filling up their plate with the vegetables and salads and drinking water instead of pop and soda, and then we can be healed. Because if we are
Yes.
relying on a vaccination to save us, I just
Mm.
thought the other day that 100% of the people who were in the trial for the vaccine all have adverse side effects. And
Oh,
I'll leave it there. David, how can people be in touch with your organization and with you?
they can go on our website, eagleacademyfoundation.org. They can find us there. We are going beyond the work with our schools. We are training schools and school districts all across the country in best practices of how you engage young men. When we look at the media, we see so many of our young men under assault, either from the police or through gangs in their own neighborhoods. Young men are up against it. And
Yeah.
we have stepped into this space to say, we love our young men. We believe in them. We're going to wrap arms around them. We're going to give them everything that they need to be successful so that they can continue to help to support their families and support our community. We need them, and we love them, and we believe in them. And we just ask that you continue to keep us in your prayers.
Thank you so much, David, and we love you for the work that you are doing. Thank you for being here with us.
Bless you.
Okay. Bless
Bye-bye.
you. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Ask the Good Doctor after this.